Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest questions humanity has ever asked. What happens after we die? We're going to explore some really compelling ideas, evidence, and personal stories, all coming from the Friday Afterlife Report, which suggests that our life here on Earth, well, it might just be the very beginning.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We're going to unpack the core ideas from these reports across 5 key themes. First up, we'll get into the basic beliefs about a world beyond our own. Then we'll check out the surprising evidence they present. After that, we'll see how these experiences can totally transform people, look at how folks actively try to connect, and finally get to the bottom of what this worldview says is the ultimate purpose of life.
Okay, first things first. Let's really get a handle on the foundational worldview we're talking about here. And, it all kicks off with a massive question. So these reports, they don't shy away from it. They tackled this universal question head on. The idea they put forward, that our existence doesn't just end when our bodies do. It's more like our time here is just one chapter in a much, much bigger story.
So the big idea here is that the physical world we see and touch, well, that's not the whole story. The core concept is that our consciousness, that sense of me, it's not just something our brain cooks up. It's actually the very bedrock of reality itself.
Okay, this is a really important term to know as we go through this. STE, or Spiritually Transformative Experience. Just think of it as a catch-all for these huge, life-changing moments, near-death experiences, powerful visions, anything that just completely flips a person's understanding of life and death on its head.
All right, so if that's the claim, what's the evidence? I mean, where does this all come from? Well, the reports pull from a whole bunch of different and pretty varied sources. You've got everything from these super personal stories, like near-death experiences, all the way to communication through mediums. And it gets pretty wild. They even talk about using technology like radios and electronic devices to try and capture voices. That's called instrumental transcommunication. And on top of all that, they point to actual formal research too. And this right here, this quote, really brings that personal side to life. It's an account from a woman named Hilda, and she's describing what it was like to pass. And what's amazing is there was no fear. She said it was a mistake to ever be afraid of death. It was just peace and seeing her family again.
But it's not all just personal stories. The reports get into some pretty surprising real-world stuff too, like they talk about how police departments sometimes work with psychics on cases, but it's all kept super quiet. And these are the big reasons why. Everything from flat-out skepticism in a world of forensics to just being flooded with bad info.
And to make their point, they bring up specific examples, like this one, a supposed 25-year partnership. It apparently started with this skeptical FBI agent who was totally stuck on a cold case, and it grew into this long-running professional collaboration. Okay, now, this is probably one of the more unusual examples in the reports. It details a session where a medium supposedly channeled, former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And people in the audience were asking questions about politics, what she's doing now, and the answers that came back were all about things like finding balance and continuing to do good work, even from the other side.
So, okay, we've looked at the big ideas and the kinds of evidence they talk about, but what does it all do to a person? What's the real-world impact? That's what we're diving into next, how these experiences can just completely reshape a life.
And what's so interesting is you start to see a pattern. There's this huge, dramatic event, and boom, it completely changes a person's direction in life. A great example is Dr. Hensley. She has a near-death experience, and it takes her from a totally normal career path to a life focused on spiritual service and healing.
Or take this story. It's about a physicist named Lester Levinson, and he's hit rock bottom, medically speaking. He's had a second massive heart attack, and the doctors have basically told him, that's it, go home and die. There's nothing more they can do. 3 months, that's all it took. According to the report, in just 3 months, he was completely healthy again. And it wasn't some magic pill or a miracle cure, it was a deep internal shift inside his own mind. So what was the big secret? Well, his breakthrough was realizing that his physical health was directly tied to his spiritual health. He figured out he was happiest when he was giving love, not just trying to get it. And that by consciously letting go of all the negative stuff, he could literally heal himself and find this incredible peace.
The reports are also pretty specific about different kinds of experiences. For instance, they draw a clear line between a regular old dream and what they call a contact dream. A normal dream can be fuzzy and weird, right? It fades fast. But these contact dreams are described as being incredibly real, logical, and just packed with positive emotion. More like a real visit than a dream.
Okay, so with all this in mind, how do people actually try to connect with this world beyond? I mean, it's not just about sitting around and waiting for something to happen. The reports show it's about actively practicing.
And there are a ton of different methods people use. You've got the more traditional stuff like meditation circles or automatic writing. Then there's really creative stuff like spirit art. And of course, there are those modern tech approaches we talked about, using electronics to listen for voices. Even things like table tipping fall into this. And what's really cool is how modern technology is bringing people together over this. A big thing in the reports is this whole global network of free Zoom groups. It means anyone, no matter where they are, can jump in, learn this stuff, and share what they've been through with a supportive community.
So, this brings us to the big finale. What's the point of all this? Why does any of this matter for us today, in our day-to-day lives? Well, it all boils down to the purpose of our time here on Earth. This quote from a spiritual teacher named Silver Birch really just nails it. The idea is that Earth is like a schoolhouse for our soul. We're not here for the final exam. We're here to learn the lessons we need so we're ready for whatever comes next. So, the ultimate goal isn't about following some strict religious dogma. It's about spiritual growth. It's about developing your character. Things like kindness, tolerance, sympathy, and love. That's the real curriculum here. Your success isn't measured by money or status, but by how much you've grown as a soul. And that's what it all leaves us with, right? A pretty big question to chew on. If this core idea is true, if our consciousness really is more than just our brain and is something that continues, well, what does that mean for how we live our lives, right here, right now? It changes everything.